The story of the Toucouleur Empire. The gathering around the fire. The evening wind whispered softly across the savannah, under a massive baobab whose roots seemed to touch the memories of the world. An old man of 95 years sat. His wrinkled skin told 1,000 stories, and his calm, deep eyes reflected the fading light of the setting sun. Around him, 30 children formed a circle, their faces filled with curiosity and wonder. The old man looked at them and smiled gently. "My children," he said, "tonight I will tell you the story of the Toucouleur Empire and its great leader, Hadj Omar Tal." He let the fire crackle, casting dancing shadows on the eager faces around him. "Listen carefully," he whispered, "for this is a tale of courage, faith, and wisdom, a story that has shaped our land and our people." The children leaned closer, the warmth of the fire embracing them, ready to journey back in time to the days when an empire rose, guided by justice, faith, and the strength of its people.
Of a leader. The old man leaned on his staff, and the firelight flickered across his wise, aged face. "My children," he began, "Omar Tal was born into a world of faith and courage. From a young age, he showed wisdom beyond his years, a heart filled with justice, and a devotion to God that guided every step of his life. Even as a boy, he understood that leadership is not only about strength, but about responsibility. He listened to the elders, learned the sacred texts, and observed the ways of the people around him. He would often say, 'A true leader protects his people, teaches them, and walks the path of righteousness.' His early life was filled with learning, prayer, and a deep understanding of justice and mercy. The children around the fire could almost see young Omar Tal walking through the villages, helping the needy, listening to those in trouble, and learning the values that would one day guide an entire empire. 'Remember, children,' the old man said, 'greatness is born from faith, wisdom, and a heart that cares for all.' The fire crackled and the shadows of the baobab stretched long across the savannah, echoing the promise of the young boy destined to shape the Toucouleur Empire. The call to unite the people. The old man shifted slightly on his seat, letting the fire crackle and send sparks into the night sky. "My children," he began, as Omar Tal grew, he saw that his people were divided, scattered across villages and lands, sometimes in conflict, sometimes lost without guidance. He knew that for the Toucouleur people to thrive, they must be united, guided by faith, and strengthened by justice. He traveled through the lands, speaking to the villagers, elders, and chiefs. With words full of wisdom and a heart full of compassion, he reminded them of their shared values and the importance of living according to the principles of Islam. Quote, "Unity, my friends," he would say, "is the strength that shields us from injustice and hardship. Faith is the light that guides our hearts." Slowly, people began to follow him, inspired by his devotion and fairness. They saw in Omar Tal not just a boy who had grown into a man, but a leader who could guide them through challenges, protect them, and teach them the ways of justice and righteousness. The children around the fire imagined these gatherings, the villagers listening in silence, hearts stirred by the words of a young leader destined to bring their people together. "And so, my children," the old man whispered, The path to a great empire begins with unity, faith, and the courage to guide others with wisdom. The formation of the army. The fire crackled louder, sending shadows dancing across the savannah as the old man raised his voice slightly to hold the children's attention. "My children," he said, "a leader must protect his people." Omar knew that to defend the Toucouleur lands and unite the people, he needed an army guided not only by strength, but by faith and discipline. He gathered young men from every village, teaching them to fight with courage, but also to act with justice and honor. Every soldier learned that battles were not for greed or power, but to protect the innocent and uphold the principles of Islam. Omar would often remind them, "Fight with courage, but let your heart remain pure. Justice and faith are stronger than any sword." Through training and discipline, the army grew loyal and skilled, ready to defend the empire and ensure that peace and order would reign. The children around the fire imagined the soldiers marching in perfect formation, guided by both the wisdom of their leader and the light of their faith. "Remember, my children," the old man said, "true strength is not only in arms, but in the heart, in faith, and in the courage to protect others." And so, Omar's army became not just a force of battle, but a symbol of the unity, discipline, and moral guidance that would shape the Toucouleur Empire. The guidance of justice. The old man leaned closer to the fire, and the children's faces glowed with the warmth of the flames. "My children," he said, "an empire is not only built with armies and battles." Omar knew that for his people to thrive, there must be justice. A leader must be fair, wise, and devoted to God. He taught his Hadjs and officials to act with integrity, ensuring that everyone, rich or poor, powerful or humble, was treated fairly. He listened to complaints, resolved disputes, and reminded his people that every action must follow the path of righteousness. "Justice is the shield of the people," Omar would say. "Faith guides the heart, but justice protects the community." Through these teachings, the empire grew strong, not just in lands and armies, but in the hearts of its people. The children imagined the villages and towns where people felt safe and respected, knowing their leader cared for every soul under his protection. "And so, my children," concluded the old man, "an empire guided by justice and faith endures, because its people are united by both righteousness and trust." The fire crackled softly, and the children leaned closer, feeling the weight of these words and the importance of a leader who rules with fairness and devotion.
The early challenges. The night deepened, and the fire's glow painted long shadows across the children's eager faces. The old man tapped his staff gently on the ground and began. "My children, even the wisest leaders face challenges. When Omar began to unite the people, some villages resisted, and rival chiefs doubted his intentions. He approached these challenges with patience and wisdom. He listened to complaints and held councils with village elders and spoke of faith, unity, and justice. Through dialogue and understanding, he often turned skeptics into allies. Omar would say, "A leader must use both heart and mind. Strength alone cannot guide the people. Understanding and fairness are the true path." Even when resistance could not be avoided, he acted with discernment, defending the people without cruelty, protecting the innocent, and teaching that mercy
was as powerful as any sword. The children imagined the young leader walking through villages, speaking to crowds, calming fears, and turning division into harmony. "My children," the old man said, "every challenge is a chance to show courage, wisdom, and faith. And it is this courage, guided by righteousness, that makes an empire truly strong." The fire flickered, echoing the trials and triumphs of a leader whose heart was as firm as his resolve. The spiritual journey. The firelight danced on the children's faces as the old man's voice softened. "My children," he said, "Omar Tal's strength was not only in his army or his wisdom, but in his deep devotion to God. From a young age, he walked a spiritual path, learning the teachings of Islam and practicing prayer, patience, and humility. He spent time with scholars, memorized the Quran, and reflected on justice and mercy. His faith guided every decision, every conversation, and every act of leadership. The heart guided by God," he would say, "cannot be shaken by fear or temptation. Faith is the light that leads a leader and his people." The children imagined Omar Tal praying under the stars, seeking guidance for the empire he would one day lead. His spiritual devotion inspired the people, showing them that true leadership comes from a heart aligned with God's will. "And so, my children," the old man continued, "the empire was built not only with armies and cities, but on the strong foundation of faith and moral guidance." The fire crackled softly, reminding everyone that the light of devotion shines brightest even in the darkest nights. The expansion of the empire. The old man's eyes glimmered in the firelight as he spoke, and the children leaned closer. "My children," he said, "as Omar Tal's wisdom and faith guided the people, the Toucouleur Empire began to grow. Villages united, and his influence spread across the land, reaching distant towns and communities. He combined strategy, diplomacy, and faith to expand peacefully when possible and with firmness when necessary. Omar Tal ensured that every conquest was guided by justice, protecting the innocent and respecting the people. "An empire," he said, "is not strong only by land and armies, but by the hearts of the people it serves." The children imagined Omar Tal riding through the villages, welcomed by cheering crowds, his presence a symbol of hope, protection, and guidance. Trade routes flourished, cities became centers of learning, and the empire's reputation grew as a beacon of faith, law, and morality. "My children," the old man concluded, "an empire guided by justice, faith, and compassion can grow beyond borders, but always must remain anchored in righteousness." The fire flickered, as if echoing the growing light of an empire led by a man devoted to God and his people. Governance and laws. The old man leaned on his staff, letting the fire cast long shadows across the children's faces. "My children," he said, "an empire is not only built on armies or territory. Omar Tal knew that strong governance and fair laws were the pillars of lasting peace. He created systems to administer justice in every village and city. Judges and local leaders were taught to be fair, impartial, and guided by the principles of Islam. Disputes were resolved with wisdom, and everyone, from the richest merchant to the humblest farmer, was treated with respect. Justice is the foundation of trust," Omar Tal would say.
Faith guides the heart, but laws protect the people. Through these efforts, the empire became not only powerful, but fair. The children imagined bustling towns where people felt safe, knowing that their leader cared for justice, truth, and morality. And so, my children, the old man continued, an empire that balances faith and law grows strong because its people are united, protected, and guided by righteousness. The fire crackled, echoing the wisdom of a leader who ruled with both heart and mind. Education and knowledge. The fire cast a warm glow, and the old man's eyes twinkled as he spoke to the children. My children, he said, Omar Tal knew that an empire thrives not only through armies and laws, but through knowledge and learning. He encouraged the study of the Quran, religious sciences, and other forms of learning across the empire. Schools and libraries were built in towns and villages. Young people learned to read, write, and memorize the sacred texts, and scholars taught ethics, justice, and faith. Knowledge strengthens the mind, faith strengthens the heart, and together they guide the soul, Omar Tal would say. The children imagined students reading under the shade of trees, learning from wise teachers, and passing knowledge to the next generation. Through education, the empire not only prospered but became a beacon of culture, morality, and spirituality. Remember, my children, the old man said, the strongest empires are those that educate their people and guide their hearts in faith and wisdom. The fire crackled, as if echoing the light of knowledge spreading across the Toucouleur lands.
Diplomacy and relations. The old man shifted on his seat, letting the firelight dance across the children's eager faces. My children, he said. Omar Tal knew that no empire survives alone. He maintained relations with neighboring kingdoms, sometimes as allies, sometimes facing challenges. He sent envoys, offered guidance, and negotiated agreements to ensure peace and cooperation whenever possible. Other kings respected him for his wisdom, his fairness, and his devotion to Islam. Strength alone cannot protect the people, Omar Tal would say. But understanding, dialogue, and faith create bonds that last. Even when conflicts arose, he combined diplomacy with strategy, protecting his empire while avoiding unnecessary bloodshed. The children imagined ambassadors traveling through bustling towns, carrying messages of peace, and communities learning to live together under Omar Tal's guidance. And so, my children, the old man concluded, a wise leader balances faith, justice, and diplomacy to maintain an empire respected by all. The fire flickered as if celebrating the harmony and unity brought by a leader whose wisdom reached beyond his own lands.
Strengthening the cities. The old man leaned forward, the firelight reflecting in his eyes, and the children listened intently. My children, he said, Omar Tal knew that a strong empire needs strong cities. He rebuilt towns, improved marketplaces, and constructed roads and bridges to connect villages and cities. These improvements allowed trade, communication, and learning to flourish. People traveled safely from one town to another, sharing goods, knowledge, and stories. An empire grows not only through conquests, Omar Tal would say, but by caring for the homes, markets, and hearts of the people. Fortifications were built around key towns to protect against invasions, while schools and mosques became centers of faith and learning. The children imagined bustling streets, traders exchanging goods, scholars teaching young students, and families feeling safe and united. And so, my children, the old man explained, Omar Tal's cities were not just strong, they were living symbols of unity, faith, and prosperity. The fire crackled, echoing the pulse of an empire whose foundations were justice, faith, and care for its people.
The role of religion. The old man rested on his staff, his voice soft but firm as he spoke to the children. "My children," he said. Omar Tal knew that faith is the heart of a strong and lasting empire. Islam guided every decision, every law, and every action. He built mosques and schools where people could pray, learn, and grow in knowledge. Religious scholars advised him, taught the people, and helped maintain peace and morality. Faith, Omar Tal would say, is the light that guides our hearts and the shield that protects our people. The children imagined the bright domes of mosques, the calls to prayer echoing across towns, and young students learning the Quran with dedication. Through religion, the people found unity, guidance, and strength to overcome difficulties. And so, my children, the old man concluded, the Toucouleur Empire thrived because faith was at its center, guiding both rulers and citizens in righteousness. The fire flickered, as if reflecting the eternal light of faith shining across the lands of Omar Tal's empire.
Agricultural development. The fire crackled softly, and the children leaned closer as the old man began. "My children," he said, Omar Tal knew that an empire's strength depends on the land and its people. He encouraged farming, irrigation, and the cultivation of crops to feed the population. Villages prospered as fields were tended carefully and harvests increased. People worked together, sharing knowledge and resources, ensuring that no one went hungry and that every community could thrive. "The land sustains us," Omar Tal would say, "and caring for it is caring for the people." The children imagined golden fields swaying in the wind, families working together, and markets filled with fresh produce, grain, and trade. Through agriculture, the empire became self-sufficient, resilient, and prosperous. "And so, my children," the old man continued, Omar Tal's care for the land and the people strengthened both the heart of the citizens and the foundation of the empire. The fire flickered, echoing the life and growth that flowed across the lands of the Toucouleur Empire. Trade and prosperity. The old man's eyes glimmered in the firelight as he spoke, and the children listened intently. "My children," he said, Omar Tal knew that for an empire to flourish, trade must thrive. He opened routes between cities, encouraged merchants, and ensured markets were safe for all. Goods from distant lands arrived: cloth, salt, gold, and spices. People exchanged not only goods but knowledge and ideas, enriching the culture and prosperity of the empire. "Trade connects hearts as well as lands," Omar Tal would say, "and prosperity comes from fairness, trust, and cooperation." The children imagined bustling marketplaces, merchants calling out their goods, and travelers sharing stories from faraway places. Through trade, the empire became wealthy, its cities vibrant, and its people connected in mutual support. "And so, my children," the old man said, Omar Tal's focus on trade and fairness strengthened the empire, ensuring that both people and cities thrived together. The fire crackled, echoing the energy of a prosperous empire under the guidance of a wise and faithful leader.
Strengthening faith through education. The old man leaned closer to the fire, the children's eyes reflecting the dancing flames. "My children," he said, Omar Tal understood that faith grows stronger when knowledge is shared. He encouraged young people to learn the Quran, study religious sciences, and memorize its teachings. Scholars traveled throughout the empire, teaching and guiding the people. Mosques and schools became centers of learning, where ethics, justice, and devotion were passed down from teacher to student. Knowledge feeds the mind, faith feeds the heart, and together they guide the soul, Omar would say. The children imagined students sitting under trees, copying texts and reciting prayers, while teachers patiently explained lessons in faith and morality. Through this dedication, the empire became a beacon of religious knowledge and devotion. And so, my children, the old man said, the Toucouleur Empire remained strong because Omar nurtured both faith and learning, guiding the hearts and minds of his people. The fire crackled, spreading warmth, just as Omar spread wisdom and faith across his lands.
Military strategy and defense. The old man rested on his staff, the firelight casting long, flickering shadows around the circle of children. "My children," he said, "even the strongest empires face threats." Omar knew that defending his people required careful strategy, not just courage. He trained his army to be disciplined, loyal, and guided by the principles of Islam. Battles were fought with honor, protecting the innocent and respecting the rules of justice. A true leader, Omar would say, defends his people with wisdom and fairness, not with cruelty or greed. The children imagined soldiers marching in perfect formation, standing firm to protect villages and towns, always guided by their faith. Even in conflict, Omar's decisions balanced strength with mercy, ensuring the empire remained just and respected. And so, my children, the old man concluded, an empire that combines courage, faith, and justice cannot be defeated, for its people are united and protected by righteousness. The fire flickered, echoing the steadfast spirit of a leader devoted to defending both his people and his principles.
Alliances and diplomacy. The fire crackled softly and the children leaned closer, eager to hear more. "My children," he said, Omar knew that true strength also comes from alliances. He formed friendships and pacts with neighboring chiefs and kingdoms, bringing peace and cooperation whenever possible. He used diplomacy to avoid unnecessary conflict, relying on wisdom, fairness, and faith to guide his decisions. These alliances strengthened the empire, creating trust between peoples and uniting them under the principles of justice and religion. An empire, Omar would say, grows not only through conquest but through understanding, respect, and shared faith. The children imagined councils of leaders shaking hands under the sun, agreeing to protect one another and work together for the good of all. Through these efforts, the Toucouleur Empire became respected and admired far and wide. And so, my children, the old man said, a wise leader combines strength with dialogue, creating bonds that last and protect the people. The fire flickered, echoing the harmony and trust woven into the empire through faith, justice, and diplomacy. Trials and challenges. The fire crackled brightly, casting moving shadows on the eager faces of the children. "My children," he said, "no empire grows without facing trials. Omar Toucouleur Empire faced enemies, rebellions, and hardships that tested the courage and faith of its people. Omar guided his people with wisdom and patience, reminding them that faith and unity were stronger than any enemy. Even when towns were threatened or disputes arose, he acted justly, protecting the weak and teaching that mercy is a strength. Courage guided by faith, he would say, can overcome the greatest challenges. The children imagined the villagers standing together, inspired by their leader, defending their homes and trusting in both God and the justice of Omar Every challenge that was overcome strengthened the empire, binding the people together and teaching them perseverance, loyalty, and discipline. And so, my children, the old man said, the Toucouleur Empire endured because its people were guided by faith, unity, and a leader who embodied justice and courage. The fire flickered, as if echoing the resilience and steadfast spirit of the empire under Omar Tal's guidance. The evening wind gently swept across the savannah, and around a large fire an old man sat. 30 children gathered around him, their eyes wide with anticipation, ready to listen to a story that had traveled through time. My children, he began, let me tell you the story of the Toucouleur Empire and its guide, Hadj Omar Tal. Born with faith and justice in his heart, Omar Tal understood early on that an empire's greatness depended on unity, discipline, and devotion. With courage and wisdom, he gathered his people, trained a disciplined army guided by piety and morality, and organized his empire to protect its people and ensure prosperity. He extended his influence through diplomacy and strategic marriages, uniting neighboring peoples and turning former rivals into allies. He consolidated cities, developed markets, roads, and agriculture, transforming each town into a center of trade and learning. Culture and education flourished, Quranic schools and libraries multiplied, passing faith and knowledge to younger generations. Omar Tal taught that faith is the light guiding the heart and justice is the key to peace. Even when faced with internal conflicts and external attacks, he remained firm but fair, listening to dissenters and protecting his people with courage and discernment. Laws were reformed, judges instructed to apply justice impartially, and the people saw in him a moral and spiritual guide. He traveled throughout the empire, teaching righteousness and piety, reminding all that power is a sacred responsibility. Through his example, he inspired his people to live according to the principles of Islam, uniting hearts and minds. My children, he concluded, remember this, an empire does not endure through weapons or wealth alone. It endures when faith, justice, and wisdom guide the people. This is how Hadj Omar Tal made the Toucouleur Empire shine for generations to come. The fire crackled gently, and in the silent savannah, the children imagined the prosperous cities, lively schools, and safe roads of the empire, all illuminated by the light of faith and justice.
Don't forget to like, share, and subscribe. Turn on the notification bell so you never miss our most thrilling new videos.